Again, we are not waiting for anybody. We are going right into it. If you know anyone who's supposed to be on this call, please send them a message, call them, Slack them, Telegram them, Clubhouse them, and let them join this session. Linda is ready for us. Okay. So welcome to Product Dive. Welcome to the friendliest product management community. Fun plus learn, right? It's a no judge zone area. It doesn't matter where you are, your experience, the industry. We are very friendly. You can ask Nike. Nike, true or false? Nike, are you there? True or false? Okay, so I think she may have stepped out. All right. Because in this picture, we are very happy people. These are Product Dive students, very happy, excited people. A little about me. I'm the host of today's event. So saying hello from here. My name is Toby Otokiti. I'm the founder of Product Dive. I'm also a senior growth product manager at Flutterwave. And I've been doing product management for about 6 years. An interesting 6 years, ups and downs. Well, yeah, it's been good. It's been a rewarding career, and which is why I want as many people as possible to be in the same career path as well. And I live in Nigeria. I'm Nigerian, yes. So, all right. So I would like to know where we are joining from. Like I said, I want us to please all go to slido.com, and then you will type in the code D537. Can we all please go to slido.com? Slido.com, and then you would type in D537. Okay. Next step. Second. Okay, so I'm pulling it up now so that we can all see where we are joining from. All right, great. So I'm going to present my screen once again. So I see that some of us are joining from Abuja. That's great. Where are you? Okay. Loading. Oh, great. Can everyone see my screen? Yay, awesome. So we have people joining us from Lagos, from San Francisco. That's good. From Ogudu, Ikeja, Benin. Please, can you tell us where you're joining us from? Please go to slido.com, put in the code D537, and please tell us where you're joining us from. Benin, Ikorodu, Ogudu, you're welcome. The US, you're welcome. Abuja, welcome. I can see Jade Sola from Lagos, Nigeria. You're welcome. So we also have people from Kwara State, from Shomo. Linda, I have so many fans. Oh my God, I'm jealous. Everyone came here because of you. I feel so jealous already. So please tell us where you're joining from. Let's get to meet you. We have people from Ibadan, Nigeria, joining as well. Kosofe, Lagos, Ondo. Wow, that's good. That's good. That's good. Can we see more? Olasukami, where are you joining from? Please go to slido.com, put in the code D537, and then we would all see where you're joining from. We really want to know where you're joining this call from. Kwara, Abuja, Ikeja. Okay, so thank you everyone, for tuning in to today's event. Okay, so so the reason why we are here today, right? 2 days ago, Product Dive launched a series called Transition into Product Management series, and this was birthed from we think that not that we think that there's actually a demand of product managers, right? And so many people have reached out to the product dive team. Toby, I want to become a product manager. How do I go about this? I am a medical doctor. Do I even fit in at all into this industry? And I'm like, yes, why not? So there are lots and lots and lots and lots of questions around how people want to become product managers. Of course, it's a rewarding career. Of course, it's I think I posted something this morning. I was like, see, guys in the technology industry are ballers. Like, they're ballers. They have money. Don't think they're that way. They're ballers. They go on vacation. So if you really want to know how that happens, please join us in the tech industry. And also even software engineers who have told me, Toby, see, I'm not enjoying this programming thing at all. I'm not enjoying it. Tell me about product management. And really that's where a transition into product management series came up. That's actually where it came out from, conversations that we've had with people. I'm like, okay, why not? Let's do this, right? So, and within Product Dive is bringing this to life. I said we launched it like 2 days ago. Product Dive exists today to help practicing product managers and aspiring product managers become highly skilled, right? So we all know that lots of businesses are moving online, right? In fact, in order for you to survive, you should have like an online presence. Who helps build those kind of products? They're product managers, right? So while we build those products, let's also ensure that we are building excellent product that solves the needs of people, product that meets people's aspirations, you know, and that's what we want to do at Product Dive. Equip people with the right skill sets, empower them with the right knowledge, right? And also to help people accelerate their careers in product management. We want you to be promoted. If you join in as an associate product manager, we want to get promoted to product manager level to become senior product manager, director of product, chief product officer, VP of product, growth product. There are different cadres in the career ladder, and we want to be with you on that journey. It's our desire to see you succeed, right? And one of the ways that we do that is via a community. We have a community on Slack. There are over 1,000, people in the community, and we are strong. Like, I'm so happy. This program isn't even up to 2 years yet, right? And we have a strong community thanks to our community organizers. Community organizers, I appreciate you. I'm doing a shout out right now to all our community organizers, Sarah, VMC, Adewale, Etima. Like, we love you. We love you guys so much, right? We also have a training. We also train product managers to write and aspiring product managers. In fact, we have a training that starts at the end of this month. So please check productdive.com. And we also offer like career support. By career support, I mean a product manager, you need like some sort of coaching, we offer that. You need interview preparation, we definitely offer that. Like, it's our desire to see you get like jobs, right? So we offer that. We also bring like opportunities to aspiring and practicing product managers. If you know that you're tired of your job and you need a new opportunity, why not? Please join the community and we'll be happy to share those opportunities with you. As I said, we have a training that starts on the 30th of January, ends on the 13th of March. It's 6 weeks, intensive 6 weeks. So you have to be ready. You must have strength, for it. And please check productdive.com/courses. And if you are interested, please join. Hey, to the reason why we are here today, Linda. Yes, so we are here to learn from Linda Zhang. She's the founder of ProductLessons.xyz. She has like a newsletter that goes out that I'll be sharing with us in the chat section. So please look out for the link that I'll be posting in the chat section now so that you can subscribe to a newsletter. She was a former group PM at Fair. She's an former insight lead at Snapchat, and she's an Harvard alumni. Yeah, so there's a whole lot to learn from our experience. So this is how the conversation today would go. Linda will be sharing with us, a path into product management, why she's so passionate about helping other people, become product managers. And then that would go for like 25 minutes, right? And then the remaining time in today's session, like 25-30 minutes, will be used in answering your questions. Your questions. So if you're not thought of your questions yet, please start thinking about it. And please put your questions in the chat section. We want to answer all your questions, right? But we would also assure you that at exactly 7 p.m. WAT, we will be out of here. So please put your questions in the chat section. Great, great, great. Okay, so over to you, Linda. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so that you can share yours, and you can also introduce yourself to the product management community in Africa.
Yeah, thank you so much, Toby, for that wonderful intro. I'm really excited to be here and to share with you guys like everything that I know about transitioning into product management, anything else that's on your mind. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you guys can see it. Yeah?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we can.
Great. Cool. So before we dive right in, I wanted to do a quick little about me. So I was an early PM at Fair. For those of you who don't know, it's a now a multi-billion-dollar US startup, and I joined in the early days when it was a company of like less than 15 people. So it's grown really quickly over the last 3-4 years. I was promoted to group PM in under 2 years. And most recently, I turned down a senior PM offer from Instagram to do my own thing. So also happy to chat about that if that's interesting to people. First started off as a management consultant out of college, but never took business or economics before that. So I think the story of my life is really, about having done things that I was never really qualified to do on paper. And I did it really by figuring out, what are the things that you actually have to demonstrate to be able to get to that next step in your career. And that's part of, why I care so much about sharing, because I think there's a lot of things that, if it really helps accelerate your path to getting to where you want to be. So like all good stories, there's going to be 3 parts to what we'll be talking about today. The first part, Act 1, is my own personal path into PM. How did I find myself where I am today? The second is zooming out more. It's actually going through all the potential options that you have to break into PM. And the third and final act will be how I evaluated new PMs as a hiring manager, and what are people thinking of when they're looking to hire for their teams, and how do you actually fulfill that for them. So Act 1, it's my winding path into product management. I did not come from a CS computer science background. I actually didn't even know what PM was until after I graduated and I started working in tech. I started hearing about this job title called product manager, and I was like, oh, that actually sounds kind of interesting the more I learned about it. And for me, there were 3 reasons why it was so compelling. The first is it's one of those rare roles where you can actually own something from start to end and see something come to life. Most roles, at least the ones that I had, been part of, from management consultant to doing consumer insights research at Snapchat, you own a sliver of the overall pie. And so you know a little bit, or a lot about that one thing, but you don't know how the whole idea came to be. The second is getting real market feedback. And I think without building products, it's hard to know if what you're working towards is actually making a difference in people's lives. And so for me, having been a consultant, most of the feedback that you get is purely perception. Like, how do people think of this, and how did that person react to your presentation? But I wanted to know, like, is this actually making a difference in people's lives? The third reason was to be able to work with a team to actually build something from nothing and actually see something come to life. And it's really rare to be able to do that. And as a PM, you're at the core of that process. So once I knew I wanted to be a PM, I interviewed at a lot of places, most of which just flat out rejected me and said, I just didn't have the track record to be be a PM. Like they didn't know if I would be a disaster or something else. And so in retrospect, they were totally right. I had no track record. I didn't know what I was doing. And it made a lot of sense that, they didn't say yes to me. Finally, though, patience paid off. A tiny startup, formerly known as Indigo Fair, but now rebranded as Fair, said I could be their head of product analytics. It was a very, very tiny company at the time. And they offered also the opportunity to try out being a PM and just see how that goes without the official title. And so that's kind of how the story turned for me, and it kind of marked my journey towards being a PM. So my first week on the job, as with a lot of early stage startups, we had a major fire, and at the time, the returns crisis was just really bad. So the way it happened was it's a website, we refund customers the moment that they submit their return request, but we found that 85% of the returns were not actually being returned back to our warehouse. So we were paying out the money, but we didn't get anything back within that 2-week window, which is really bad for us from like a cash conversion perspective. So what I did as the new product analytics person was I looked at the entire returns experience from a customer perspective as well as from a data perspective. And I noticed that the customers were actually never reminded to make a return. They were never prompted to schedule returns pickup. So the solution that I proposed was, let's launch a scheduled pickup flow, make it easy for people to do the action we want them to do. And let's also launch a new email cadence that reminds people how and when they should be returning these goods. And upon launching that, we went from 85% of goods not returned to 15% within 2 weeks. So we basically flipped the metrics. And I think this is one of those rare opportunities where something's really broken and it's on fire. And if you can change that, it's a massive, massive difference to the business. And that, I think, marks the first lesson of, you can always try and look for transforming experiences, transforming opportunities. But I think there's opportunity to make every single experience transformational for you. So for me in this scenario, I dived straight into the data to see what was happening. I saw that customers, were returning to the site after they made their return. So it's not like they bailed on us. They were still engaged. They still wanted to be part and be using this product, but they were not dealing in bad faith. And that gave us confidence that, okay, we're not actually in trouble. We just need to figure out how to make this easy for them. I also went to, the stage of proposing solutions. My job was not actually to do that. My job was to diagnose the problem from a data perspective and come up with a proposal, but I wanted to actually extend it into solving the problem. So I didn't have any design resources at the time. We only had one designer, and she was busy doing something more important than what I was working on. So I actually designed the scheduled pickup flow, the new experience effectively in Google Slides, like in the tool that you're seeing now, which is definitely not the proper tool for product design. But I did it anyway because I wanted to make sure that we could get the feature out as quickly as possible. And I shared that with engineers. And so the combination of doing all these things, I think, showed that I wanted to do the role. I had the capabilities to solve problems, and I was willing to do, whatever it took to basically make sure customers got a better experience. And so within a few weeks of that crisis, I was made officially a PM on the team. Normally, I don't think it happens that quickly. In a lot of ways, it's like, are you in the right place at the right time? And for me, we really needed a PM, but they were nervous about making me a PM before they could see whether I could actually do the job. Like I wasn't gonna, crash and burn. So within a few weeks, I proved myself, and I was well on my way to being a PM. The second section is zooming out and taking a look at all the different ways people like you can break into PM. And I think this is not necessarily an exhaustive list. It's a pretty comprehensive one, but I think that there's always ways to get into roles that you wouldn't expect. But let's go through the common ones, and we can always chat about like potential other avenues. So certainly in the US, there's 4 main ways that I've seen people get into PM. The first is through an APM program, We can talk about that in detail. The second is internal transfer. This happens to be very common. This is the path that I took and that I'm the most familiar with. The third is to join a startup as a PM. And the fourth is to start your own company, which is doing all of this in hard mode. So diving into the details, for APM, this is typically designed for new grads from university, from college, or people a few years into their career. And it's usually run by bigger companies that can actually afford to come up with all this upfront training and also have products that are not mission critical and that they can have someone new basically practice with. And so the way to get into this program, and I've seen a number of friends do this, it's a lot of interview prep. Because you've never been a PM before, there's no real way to draw on your experience of, hey, when I did this, this happened. And so in this interview, this is what I'm going to say. So I think coming in with no experience, you're just going to have to do a lot more cycles through interview practice. Referrals is very helpful because it's a very competitive landscape. And I think a bonus that most people don't do, and I don't think you have to do, but really does help you stand out, is to have experience building your own product. It doesn't have to be anything huge or official, but I think the very act of, putting your mind to something, creating it, interviewing customers, iterating on it, gives you firsthand experience into what it's like to actually do that thing. And I think it also shows a lot of resourcefulness, which is it's a good thing. The upside of going through an APM program is you learn with a cohort of people who are around your age, and you do it under a brand name. So that's very good. It can be very fun for a lot of people. I think the downside is that whenever it's a big group of people, the training ends up regressing to the mean. So it's probably going to take you a while, probably a few years before you get to work on big, meaty products. So the trade-off of working at a bigger company is you may not have that much freedom, right? Something's assigned to you and you basically go through the typical path. And some people break out and do other things, but there's kind of it's almost like school. There's a curriculum that you follow. The other downside that I didn't write on here is that it's not, because it's so competitive, like once you're out of the window of their years of experience requirement or something, you're not going to be able to go back and be an APM. Like I couldn't be an APM today and it wouldn't really make sense for me. But there are thankfully other options. The most common option that I've seen friends take is an internal transfer. So this is your fastest path. If your company already has a product team, transferring in is pretty ideal in a lot of ways. It's very good to be in a product adjacent role, mostly because it helps you be closer to the team. So you probably know the PMs, you can help them out. Your work already kind of relates to their work. So it's not very random to pop in, but I do think it's possible also for people in very different roles to transition into product within the company as well. So the way to do it, how do you do it? I think the first step is really getting to know the customers and the data. It's the path that I basically took accidentally, and a lot of people I've seen in other companies do the same. You want to basically become the expert on something that's core to product management. And usually that's knowing what the customers are like, how they're going to react to something. It's helpful to shadow the PMs at your company because it gives you a close-up look at what is your job actually like? What do they do? And do you like it? So it's a good way to test your own interest. I would offer to take work off their plate and offer things that's going to help them do their job, whether it's taking customer interview notes, whether it's synthesizing research, whether it's doing some data analysis. The PM role is it's very expansive. And so people are very happy usually to delegate some of the many projects on their plate. And in short, it's about getting unofficial experience so that you can actually translate that into like a real job title. The upside is that with an internal transfer, you already know the company. So you probably already know how to operate. And if you've built a strong reputation, you have a pretty good chance of getting in versus applying to a company that has no idea who you are. The downside is that company may not always be your top choice if you're a PM. My advice here is typically like if it's unless it's unbearable, I would try to get the title first and then apply elsewhere down the line if you want. Oftentimes getting that title is the very first step to just basically breaking into PM. Suddenly, you know, people find that you have like a lot more credibility. It's less risky to take you on. The third path is joining a startup. So the reason why this can work for you is startups tend to be a little bit more flexible with hiring PMs without previous product experience. And the way I would do this is really do your homework. A startup can be impressed if you actually do some of the work for them of, you know, what would you do if you were the PM of the startup? Like, what improvements would you make? How would you grow their business? And I've seen some friends also make this part work. The upside is working for a startup, you get exposed to all types of problems in a very short span of time. And in many instances, you know, it can be career making, like the company grows really quickly and you end up growing along with it, and that can be really exciting. The downside of working for a startup is you're probably not going to get, you know, structured coaching, mentorship from people who've done this for years. Most likely your learnings are just going to come from sheer iteration and like shipping stuff, learning from your mistakes. So you got to be okay with a less structured environment. Let's see. The fourth and last option is starting your own company. And this is what I would call like, you're just doing this on steroids, right? It's a very intense endeavor to do that. And if your end goal is to PM at a company, I would not take this path. I would save yourself the pain and try the other very good options instead. The upside of doing this is, you know, if you already want to start your own company, you should probably do it, you know, as soon as you are able to, because it's a very different skill set from anything that you would necessarily do at another company where things are more stable, so a product has already been figured out. You do get to keep most of the upside of your hard work, and you probably can end up running the product function if everything works out. The downside is it's very intense. It has very wild payoff ranges, and most of the time it does go to zero. And you got to be okay with that. You got to love kind of that process. And the other thing is that building a great business is way harder than just building a great product, right? There's a lot more to it. There's distribution, there's sales, there's marketing, there's the economics of it all. And if it's your first time, you know, starting your own company, I would temper the expectations and know that you're probably not going to hit a home run immediately. So it's kind of playing the long game. But if that's what you want to do, you know, it's certainly a path that's available. I think the main takeaway from this second section is really separating the title from the doing. I find that a lot of people, when they first realize they want to be a PM, it's like, oh, how do I make sure that people give me the job? But the truth is, you don't need permission to practice building products. You can do it on your own. You can help other people do parts of their job. And truly progress comes from doing the real thing. It's helpful to study for sure. Like you can study the theory, you can memorize frameworks, but you're never really going to know if you're any good unless you actually dive in and do the real thing. And even better, I think I linked this and I can share the slides with you guys later, but even better, find an unfair advantage. And what that means is everyone has a strength. And sometimes your strength can make you better off doing a specific kind of job. So for me, I didn't know this at the time, but I was like data analysis came very easily to me. And I was a fairly strong communicator. And the combination of those two things, being able to tell stories and being able to inform it with data, actually made me very unique as a PM. And it helped me build the confidence and helped me earn the credibility to be a strong PM at FAIR. And I think finding, you know, what that is for you is going to save you a lot of time. And it's also going to give you the confidence to move forward and to be able to do whatever it is that you want to do. A common question that I often get is, why is it so hard to be a PM? And this isn't tailored to your local market, but what I found is that generally speaking, the demand to be a PM far outstrips the supply, basically the job titles available. For every 2 to 3 designers, for every 8 to 10 engineers, there can be only 1 PM. The ratio varies at different companies, but you'll often find that that's somewhat directionally true. The second, and the thing that's really important to keep in mind, especially when you think about what the hiring manager is thinking about, is that PMs are risky to hire. As a PM, you're often making decisions that impact what other people are going to be working on and how they're going to be spending their time. So every single PM is a force multiplier. They're either positive or they're negative. And when they're negative, it can be very, very bad. So the hiring managers they want to make sure that it's not going to be a crash and burn type of situation. The third is that the path is actually pretty unclear. Unlike engineering, unlike design, unlike medicine or law, there isn't like a specific training that leads you straight to a job per se. So a lot of people are left feeling in the dark. And I'm hoping that through this presentation, hopefully that fog clears up a little bit more. So the final section is about how I evaluated new PMs as a hiring manager. I should caveat by saying that every company has a slightly different set of criteria. So it depends on the company, but the things that we looked for at the growth stage company, the fair that I was working at before, is a couplefold. The first is problem solving ability. Can you take a hypothetical problem that we give you in an interview, and then can you figure out like what is happening with the situation and what are the steps you take to fix it. The second is clarity of thought. And this is really about like when we hear you speak about your thought process, when you write things down, can you be very clear and crisp in your communication so that other people on the team can hear it or read it and be like, that makes sense. Like I know exactly what you're talking about. The third is customer intuition. Can you put yourself in the shoes of the customer and imagine on their behalf? And do you care to do that? Not everybody, finds that exciting. And this is really hard to assess a lot of times because every customer is different. So depending on what product you're working on, your intuition needs to basically readapt. So this is hard to assess, but it is also very important, and people try to get at like, can you actually do that thing? The fourth, and the one that I think is going to take you far in any career, is a growth mindset. Are you eager to prove yourself wrong and learn from your mistakes, and not be, fearful of like, oh, I didn't do well enough, like therefore I'm not good, and therefore I'm just going to end up quitting. So the criteria does vary by stage of the company, by the DNA of the company, and the needs of the specific team. And I've turned down a number of really high potential candidates at FAIR because we just didn't have, the bandwidth to mentor them and set them up for success. So the lesson here is don't feel bad if you get rejected. I got rejected many, many times. Oftentimes it's not even about your performance. It's like, are you a good fit for their particular needs at that moment? So keep trying. My final thoughts on this is most people want to be right, but the best people want to know if they are right. And this is especially true in product management because it can be so tempting to fall in love with your idea. Like, oh, this is the best solution and I'm going to make it work no matter what. But the truth is it may not be, right? A lot of times things change in the course of building that product. And you have to be open-minded and want to know, like, maybe we're wrong. Like, what are all the ways in which I can figure out whether I'm wrong or whether I'm right? And that's going to actually help you stand out and get you to better products faster. The seeking truth part, like knowing what is actually true, is far more important than personal validation. Like product management is not about personal validation. It's about market validation, business validation. So you have to kind of take your own ego out of that equation. And the final thing is, finding your talent stack is probably one of the most valuable things you can do in your career. I've also linked it to an article I wrote previously. If you guys have never heard of the term talent stack, it's the idea that you don't need to be the top 1% for any given skill to be in the top 1% overall. And what that's trying to say is you can be relatively good at a number of different skills, like whether it's data, whether it's talking to customers, whether it's design. And because you have a unique set of skills that you're relatively good at, the combination can actually make you very unique and very good overall. And I think this is actually a really practical advice for people, because most of us, we're not going to be Tiger Woods. We're not going to be, Mark Zuckerberg, right? Like, we're not going to be known for that one thing that we're super good at. But everyone can build their own talent stack and improve their own kind of standing and their ability to make an impact. So the last slide, there we go. So I write a free weekly newsletter. If you guys want more, you can subscribe, and I respond to every single email. So it's a really good way to also get in touch with me. And if you have any follow-up questions after the session. I also created a new paid product called Product Toolkit. It teaches you the full product development lifecycle and career strategies to get ahead. Basically all the things that I've learned in my time as a PM. And most importantly, it covers real examples of product work and actionable templates. So you can actually do something with it and apply it to your own life. And it's the toolkit that I basically wish I had when I started as a PM and got into a group PM role. And you can also find me on Twitter. So email and Twitter are probably the best ways to reach out. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Linda. My God, like I kept on writing in my product dive book.
Oh, wow. I'm so flattered.
Yeah, it was really insightful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Of course.
The part that made me laugh the most when you said that, what, like, so you made mention of, like one of the really good ways to transition quickly is internal transfers. Why? Because product managers always have like a whole lot, and it's great that you come to me and say, let me help you with this customer feedback. In my mind, I'm like, oh yes, this is really true. Imagine if somebody at my current organization comes to tell me, so you know what, let me just help you handle this research. Let me help you handle, like, I'll be so excited. So you guys, that's actually like one major trick to become a product manager. Product managers' hands are always full. There is never enough of time to do the work, So I totally enjoyed it. And I also loved, the talent stack that you spoke about. So guys, I have posted the link to our newsletter on the chat section. Please look out for it. Subscribe to our newsletter, get the toolkit, and yeah, we can't wait, to welcome you to the world of product management. So it's time for questions. We have 20 more minutes. So there's a question here that says, you guys please put your questions in the chat section. I know someone has asked me a question already. So there's someone who said, what is the difference between a product manager and a project manager?
Oh, a project manager and a product manager?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it does also vary by company. Like, some companies only have project managers and some people only have product managers. But I think the traditional definition is, if you're project with a J, you're responsible for delivering that solution within the right budget, the right time. But if you're a product manager, you're typically responsible for the whole process, like figuring out what to build, validating the problem, validating the solution, and also making sure that it gets delivered on time. But if you're a product manager paired with a project manager, the project manager maybe steps in a little bit more on the, can we deliver this and can we deliver this on time?
All right, great. Thank you, Linda. Please ask your questions. We have 20 minutes to answer your questions, so please ask. There is another question here that says, how did you gather all the knowledge you used on your first job? And this question is from Adejumake.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that all of the stuff that you do before you become a product manager, they end up shaping the person that you become. Like before I became a product manager, I was a management consultant, and I did consumer insights and market research at Snapchat. And I had no idea that any of those things would help me as a product manager. But as it turns out, the things that you do end up, opening your minds to different ways of thinking. And I think some of the best product managers are the ones who come from different disciplines, whether, it's having done a lot of customer research before and like being familiar with that, or having done sales and knowing what it takes to influence people. I think because the product manager job is so broad, there's so many disciplines that actually facilitate your ability to be a great PM. And I think leaning into that strength is going to be really important. And the other thing to keep in mind is even if you feel prepared, the truth is once you start building, you will not actually be truly prepared. And a lot of the learning will have to be on the job, making mistakes and figuring out how to learn from that is probably by far the biggest thing. But don't lose sight of all the stuff that you've learned before that can give you an edge.
All right, thank you, Linda. So the next question is from Charles Annie. Hi, Linda. How can we get the PM toolkit you mentioned?
Oh yeah, I think someone just sent the link over in the chat. It's also linked in my it's also linked in the slides. It's the last slide.
All right, great. So there's a question from Kelechi. Hi, Kelechi. Is there a market for PM in, say, 20 years? That's the first question.
Let me look into my crystal ball and see if there's still a role. I hope so. I mean, I hope that there still is. I think that there will be, because I think a lot of what you do as a PM is actually just solving problems and figuring out how do we create something that people want, because it solves their problem, it creates value in their life. And you couple it ideally with a business that can sustain itself, right? And I think that very act of like making something that people want and building a business around it, that's existed since the beginning of time. And product manager is like a title. It's a title to describe this act that is so innately human and fundamental to societies. And so I think it definitely will exist. Whether it's the same title is a different question, but I think that the skill sets that you develop is timeless.
Yeah, that's correct. The second question from Kelechi, does every industry need a PM or just tech?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that from where I stand, like there's definitely value in that. I think the trend over the last several decades even is that every single industry is being touched by technology, of people automating certain things, making it more customer friendly, making it more accessible to all people. And that's just like a general trend that's happening everywhere, even for industries that are more antiquated. And as that happens, the need for a product manager, I actually think, increases, because whenever you have people who are building things, coding things, designing things, making things more customer friendly, the one skill set is, can you actually do it? Like, can you code? Can you design? Can you analyze the data? But another skill set that's really crucial that the PM fills in for is, what is the most important thing to work on? Because the truth is, you can't build everything in the world. And if you build everything in the world, it's not going to be a great product, because it's going to be pretty complicated. There's going to be a lot of bloat. And so I think this skill of figuring out prioritizing what's most important, helping people identify where to spend their time, these other teams, that's crucial. And I think as technology sweeps across all these industries, this skill set of learning how to prioritize, learning where to place your time, and learning how to validate your ideas is only going to grow in importance.
I totally agree. Okay, so we move on to the next question because of time. From Shefumi, can you transition from a project manager to a product manager, also from product marketing to product manager?
Yeah, I think all of those are possible. The closer you are to working with PMs, and the closer you are to the act of like coming up with solutions and ways to solve problems for people, the relatively easier it is, because you're already, you're already in the circle. But if you never worked with PMs before, there's more jumps that you have to go through. And so I think any of those paths are possible. And I know people who've done each of those paths, but the time it takes to get there depends on, the company that you're at, the company that you want to be at, and how many steps removed are you from, where the action is.
Okay, so let's move on to the next question from Armir. I'm currently working on a product. I'm doing user research. Is there a list number of people I need to talk to? Because I'm confused if the amount of people is enough or not.
Yeah, I think that there are benchmarks for how many people you should talk to. If you're working on a brand new product, I would say that you probably want to speak to at least 5 to 10 people, 5 being very much on the low end. But it's kind of like a rule of thumb in that there's no fixed number. What you actually want to see when you talk to customers is that, assuming you're targeting a specific segment and everybody that you've spoken to like kind of fits in that segment, it's the fact that once you start talking to them, there are patterns that emerge. Like they say certain things that are shared. They don't have to be identical, but there needs to be some overlap that you can point to and say, oh, that's a need that we can address by doing X, Y, Z. So it's not really about the number, but usually when you get to 5 to 10, and assuming you're targeting the right people, you will start seeing patterns emerge. And there's also a pretty good book about doing customer research. How do you ask questions that are not misleading and that don't get you excitement for no reason? It's called the Mom Test, and I summarized parts of the book in one of my recent newsletters. I think it's the how do you make sure customers like don't lie to you or something like that. And the truth is, like, people are nice, right? And they want to, if you're really excited about an idea, they want to make you feel good. And it's your job to figure out whether it's actually true or not, right? And so asking objective questions, and there's more to it, you can read the article. Asking objective questions is important, and framing the questions in a way that's more open-ended is going to help you out.
Okay, thank you, Linda. So moving on to the next question. Guys, we have just 11 more minutes. Okay, so there's a question from Victor. So Victor says, I have over 7 years working as a cybersecurity technical specialist from a software development background, and now want to transition to a PM. You're welcome, Victor. It's been really tough. I am building a product and hope that helps me. How do I hack this process?
Yeah, it's not easy. It took me a lot of interviews to even get a shot at like a trial for a PM. Without knowing too much about the company that you work for, I would say try to get close to the people who decide, what it is that we build, and like learn. I think even by observing how are decisions made, like how do we choose what to make and what to not make? How do we choose what to prioritize versus not? And I think usually if you can get close to the decision makers, and if there's a product team that's available that you could collaborate with, that is like your first in. I would, go back to the what I was saying even earlier around the title and the doing are very different. To get to the title, the best way to get to a title that you want is to start doing as much of the work unofficially as you can, whether it's on the job or whether it's off the job, because it gives you more confidence that you can do this. And it also gives you more credibility that you're serious about it. It's not just, oh, I want to be a PM. It's I've done XYZ, which are part of the PM job. And I've done the research about our customers, and here are the things that I think are really important for them. And I think becoming kind of an expert in your specific space, assuming you want to be a PM in cybersecurity at your company, is going to be crucial. But it is hard, and every path is different. But if if this is what you want to do, like hang in there and figure out ways you can learn parts of the skill set.
All right. Victor, I hope you're satisfied with the answer. It's tough, but don't worry, you get through. That's why you have this community, the Product Dive community. So there's a question from Gracious. Thanks, Linda. Product versus project manager role is clear. But what about a program manager? It seems some job descriptions for product manager and program manager are the same in big tech companies. This is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
So Linda,
Oh, sorry, go on.
Yes, I said yes. So that's the question. So what is the difference? This is asking what's the difference between a program manager and a product manager, even though in big tech companies, when you look at the job description, the JD of a program manager is same as that of a product manager. So what's like the difference?
Yeah,
An example.
It's a good question. I don't know what the difference is. Some companies I think only have like program managers, and the program managers basically serve the role as the product manager. So the title is just what a person chooses it to be. To really figure out whether it's a PM role, I would ask a series of questions around, how do they develop products, and how is this program manager involved in developing products? Like, are they part of the ideation, brainstorming, validation process? You basically want to see that they're that you're involved enough in the beginning to actually shape the decisions. I think that's probably the biggest distinction in product management versus the other roles of you have a stake from the very beginning to create something from nothing. And you get to talk to customers and you get to make decisions ideally. So I think when the job description is ambiguous, or it's kind of like a product manager, but it's not within the title, I would dig a little bit more into that company's process and see who calls the shots.
Yeah, and an example of a company that actually does this is Microsoft. When you look at the job description of program managers at Microsoft, they're actually product managers. So again, all of these things are titles. The important thing is that you get that skill, right? And especially if this is like your first role, you want to get that skill, right? And then once you get the skill set, you interview the other organizations, because what organizations are actually looking out for is that you have the skill set, that you can add value to their organization. So at the very beginning, don't worry too much about the title, right? If I don't even worry too much about, don't worry too much about the title. Get into the company, even though it's a CX role. By CX, I mean customer support, or it could be designer. Just get in, right? And then you can make the transfer to another role. So there is another question from Amir. Guys, we have 5 more minutes. So 5 more minutes. At exactly 7, we end the call. What's the difference between a growth product manager and a product marketing manager? What is the level of abstraction between the two?
So growth PM versus product marketing manager?
Yeah,
it's a great question. Again, it's one of those things that's very company dependent, but I think traditionally, what I've seen is the growth PM is responsible for the part of the business that's top of the funnel. It's how do we get more people to visit? How do we get more people to sign up? And so the things that you're touching are maybe like the landing page and the sign up flow, and perhaps you work with the paid marketing team to get the ads out, etc. The product marketing manager traditionally is involved with the positioning of the product. So once the product has been made, usually it's like a new product or like some type of launch, how do you communicate it to your customers? How do you describe it, compared to all the other things that they know? How do you work with maybe the sales team to get the product in the hands of these customers? So it's more marketing, like you already have this product and you want to figure out how do you actually, describe it and communicate in a way that will get people to end up using it. And I find that typically the growth PM role exists at a company before there's a lot of hires for a product marketing manager, mostly because when there isn't a product marketing manager, the product manager usually is responsible for the marketing. But as the company grows, they may hire additional people to take over that part so that the product managers can focus on the other many parts of the job.
Oh my God, I really wish I could speak to this. Of course of time, I wouldn't. So if you need more responses or answers to this, you can Slack me. But trust me, the role of a growth PM is different from the traditional PM. Growth PMs are very numbers focused. Acquisition, retention, revenue. Oh my God, I wish there was time to really talk about the growth PM role, but it's really interesting. So we have 2 more minutes. I think we would only be able to take one question. Oh my God, there's still lots and lots of questions here. Maybe not a lot. So there is one from Adiola. How can I harness my past experience in architecture and project management from the construction industry so as to land a job as a product manager?
Yeah, so without knowing too much about your role, just having heard that, I would say that, oftentimes if you're working on anything that's like a big project, right, you want to figure out what is it that you actually need to do to be able to build something in time and within budget. And that's certainly a skill set that's important when you're delivering something, that's actually a product that it's either digital or hardware. So in some ways, construction is like products, but at a much larger scale. And I think with architecture, I worked with a product designer who came from an architecture background. I think that there's a lot of things that actually translate, right? When you're creating architecture, you're thinking about the people who are going to be using it. And so you have already a customer centric focus in the work that you do. I think that the user experience, like the actual, like how do people interact with this thing, is also kind of related to the architecture stuff as well. So I actually think there's quite a bit of overlap, but I think it always takes a little bit of reflection to figure out, what are the things that you can take away and turn into strengths and communicate that to, the people that you want to PM for.
All right, thank you very much, Linda. So that's all of the questions I'll be taking. Remember that this is a series. It's a 4-week series, right? So there is another session next week, Saturday, and then next Friday, right? So we have next week, Saturday, we have the director of products from Drift. Then upper week, we have a senior product manager from another organization. And then the 4th week, we have a product manager from, it's an interesting organization, but I won't mention the name. It's an organization that everybody has, a login credentials to, right? I'm sure you guys can guess, but I'm going to keep it as a surprise. So it's for 4 weeks. This is a 4-week series. So please, we will try to answer all of your questions. Please make sure that you do not miss out, make sure you try to attend like the sessions. So one last thing that I want to talk about, right, is that Product Dive has also designed a transition product management course. And then there is a wait list for that. We would only share details about the course with people who join the wait list. Now, this course has been designed to help you get your first product manager job. It's not everything product management. It's very specific. It's very results driven, right? How do we get you into that job, right? So this comes with like live coaching calls. It comes with you building like your first product. Yes, but building your first product based on the skills that are required from a product manager to build that product, right? So in the email that you will receive after this call, you will receive more information about this course. But again, it's strictly for career professionals who are not product managers, because that course has been tailored strictly for those who want to become product managers, right? And then lastly, please join the community. I think Sarah already dropped the link to the Slack community. If you're not following us on Twitter, please do. If you're not following us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, please do. And thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much. If I let me stop sharing my screen. Thank you, Linda, for sharing with us. It was a fantastic session. We learned a whole lot. And thank you for sharing your slides. Guys, if you've not subscribed yet to Linda's newsletter, please do. I'm going to say like 100 times. Please subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. And see you next week, Saturday. Remember that we start at exactly 6 p.m. and we are ending right now. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you, Toby.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Enjoy your weekend.